All right, good morning and welcome to our channel. Today we're going to do a Q&A for those of you that have questions regarding Section 8 housing, navigating the system, or maybe questions about affordable housing and low-income housing. So it looks like this video is pretty early in the morning, and so we have to wait for our viewers to show up. I'm okay with that. So while we do that, I'm going to make a few introductions. My name is Jay. I'm the owner of Section8Consulting.com. We work with around 1,000 plus clients a year, trying to resolve matters related to housing authorities, their employees, issues that need to be taken up to HUD and other federal agencies, landlords that want to learn or participate in the program, and of course, prospective voucher holders and tenants that have questions that are pressing they can't seem to get an answer to. One thing I want to do is talk about, while we wait for people to show up, is some of the issues that I see rolling out in the country right now. It's been pretty quiet. Feds have given a hike rate to the housing market. We have a pretty big problem with not enough housing on the market, and what's out there has been snapped up by corporations, driving this overwhelming problem. So hopefully the hike from the feds will help loosen the market a little bit, and then hopefully there's more properties to rent out there. Good morning, Adam, and good morning, Disabled Outcast. Now, one thing I want to talk also about is going to be a new line of videos I'll be doing this year. You know, I'm widely considered outspoken when it comes to housing and vouchers and Section 8. And this year, this last quarter of the year, we're going to be talking about sensitive topics because it needs to be addressed. One thing I've always explained to people in our viewership of this channel, which is close to 40,000, we need to be able to hear the truth and not just sugarcoat things, okay? Not everything's going to be pleasantries and prayer circles. We have to sometimes address the elephant in the room. One thing that I saw, and this is very curious, my mind was wandering last night, and I was watching the H.P. Lovecraft movie on, I think it was Netflix, and it was addressing sundown towns. Now, for those of you that didn't live through the more difficult times or periods in our country when racism and prejudicial behavior was at its height, not that it's changed that much, but it's still there, it occurred to me that we should address the pretense of that. Not so much sundown towns and black folks having to leave those towns after dark. That stuff doesn't really exist anymore. But I think what does exist is, the segregated market that directly affects Section 8 and voucher holders and the use of vouchers. And I think there needs to be a real conversation about that. One that's not going to be a platform for extremism and racist and bigoted comments, but more one of understanding better how the effect of vouchers, housing, the opinions and ideas, how sundown towns affected that, as well as what we see play across the country and division of neighborhoods and things, and how that affects those of us using vouchers. So that'll be an interesting one. We're going to be addressing that Sunday. It's not for everybody, but I think that we're going to look at the educated side of it and try to come up with some ideas there. But just to be clear, I'm not going to use that as a platform or a launching platform for extremists and other comments, okay? So things must remain dignified throughout that video, as well as the comments included in there. All right, so we also, thank God for fall. It's almost here. A couple of days, it'll be fall. We're still roasting like turkeys in Texas. I'm sure you guys in California, Arizona are doing the same. But God, I'll be glad to see some cool air blow through, because it sure put me in a better mood when I make these videos. I know my cats are roasting to death, and so we'll be glad to see some cool air pass through soon. All right, good morning, Kels. I appreciate your information, you subscriber. That should be an interesting one and quite informative. And I'm hoping so. Because we need to be able as a nation to start changing things. We need to be able to address things heads on, and we need to understand how that's going to affect us in the market. Okay. And that's everybody's involved in that. We can't improve as a nation or even as humans on earth if we're not going to address the more difficult issues and just walk around it. So Sunday's video will be interesting. I'm expecting a lot of people that may disagree or agree. That's fine. I don't take positions. My job is simply to show how that affects Section 8 housing and how that's played out over the years and what we can do to better get out of that frame of thinking and action. And yep. All right. So this morning's about Q&A. You guys have questions about housing and vouchers. Now would be the time to ask, not just sit in the corner and quietly watch from a distance. Also, I want to say that we're going to be doing a line of how-to videos. This time, I'm going to be doing very specialized how-to videos from starting next week. And I mean, these are things where how do you address complaints with landlords, with the feds? How do you address issues? How do you calculate rents? We're going to get into more serious topics. What we're not going to do is how-to videos. I'm not doing any more how-to videos on how to get a voucher. Okay, let's stop dealing with the mainstream stuff. But I wanted to get into particulars. Some of the issues with portability, some of the issues with modifications and accommodations for those of you who are disabled. So we're going to hit some very niche topics so we're able to get information on the market, because everybody on YouTube likes to make videos about popular topics, but they're going to get a lot of views. As a consultant, I need to be able to also answer all the more obscure issues that are related. Maybe how to deal with a mold infestation in your apartment while using a Section 8 voucher, how best to address that. So we're going to hit a lot of niche marks there. And of course, I will entertain questions that aren't related to those videos during the video, because that's just the nature of having videos here. People ask me a wild number of things that may or may not be related to the video. So beyond that, there's another elephant in the room. We're having a very interesting election season. One poor fellow, he's already had an attempt on his life twice. So, we really are living in different times. We're seeing so much extreme behavior. We got a country that's $35 trillion in debt. The interest on it alone, I don't think the U.S. will ever pay off. So I have my own concerns there. I have concerns about the future of this country, and whether or not we will remain in the position we are as a superpower. We're blowing through money at massive rates, and these things play out into, you're thinking, okay, I'm here for Section 8. Why are we talking about the national debt? Well, all housing markets, interest rates, presidential elections, all these things affect that directly. Okay, it affects the federal budget. It affects whether or not we can sustain these budgets. We got a post office going, postal system that's bankrupting itself, a social security system that could be bankrupt, a post office system that barely works and is hemorrhaging money. HUD we barely fund, but we've got trillions for bombs, and so we can run around the planet and save everybody's ass. And then when we can't save them, we send them we boat them over here. But we can't fix our own problems with housing here. So we have some fundamental issues as a nation we need to address, and we need to come up with more realistic ways of addressing it. And of course, the political divide around the country doesn't make that easier. I imagine someday the U.S. could break up. It'll probably be, Texas and Florida wanting to be their own deal, and then of course New York and California wanting to do their Democratic thing, and Republicans want Florida and Texas doing their own thing. And so what I'm watching is a slow divide of the country. Talking about Sunday's video where we're talking about sundown towns and the effect on the market, and also desegregation of neighborhoods based on color and pretense. Looking back at history, and so we're looking at past, current, and future. We're still affected by the past. History, what's written in history is a lot of what the future holds for us. And we're very slow learners in this country. We'll go forward, and then I'll watch things walk right on back. And so that's concerning for me, that we can't seem to win if we keep walking forward and then taking 4 steps back. So Lloyd Torres, good morning, welcome. If a voucher becomes available in another state, should we apply to port it to our original state? Well, let's understand what's prescribed under Code of Federal Regulation and portability and moves under those titles. Portability and moves. So if Congress issues money at the federal level to issue housing vouchers, federal dollars must be available to all Americans, regardless of where they live or work. That means also for housing authorities issuing vouchers. Now, not every housing authority has to grant portability. Sometimes the feds issue special funding for a special group of people and special groups, and they call them special use vouchers. Now, under that, they may not allow portability. But there are many reasons in which you could get portability granted. Imminent threat, domestic violence, natural disaster, many of the things the housing authorities would never want to disclose because they'd have a run on the door. So, our company works with clients through casework to help with portability issues where you're winning a voucher 2,000 miles away, but have to have a really good legal reason to move it. So the possibility, Lloyd, is certainly there. The ability for the average person to be able to navigate that legally is pretty tough. Okay, so usually people end up calling me or an attorney. Sherry Austin, how to investigate and apply for apartments in other states that are any ambassadors that can help seniors looking for apartments. Well, I think that deserves a realistic view of how this country and applying works in terms. So let's start with the lawyer. Okay, I know that seems unrelated to what you're asking, but when people have issues related to Section 8, attorneys don't typically want to defend that position because they realize their clients, the potential clients, may not have money. They're low income. And so they don't feel like they want to waste their time and they can't pay the mortgage on their mansion. That also plays out with real estate agents. And so what you see is a deprivation of the market where people need consultants related to housing. They need legal defense. They need to be able to navigate easily to find housing for Section 8, but it's not there. It's non-existent. So it makes a guy like me that does Section 8 consulting have to navigate many different things, including issues related legally, housing and how to find it. So I will tell you, Sherry Austin, um, there's advice that can be given in relation to how to investigate and apply for apartments in other states, but it's not a linear fashion how you can do it. In other words, a lot of it requires an immense amount of research or another professional in the trade to kind of help you do that. There are not, as far as I'm aware, any mainstream people that are per se a Section 8 housing locator service. Why would that be so? Well, it's hard to monetize that, and most people don't want to work for free, and it's very time consuming trying to locate apartments, and then you're trying to install an element in society that may not have a great deal of money or income, and so there's no incentive behind it for brokers and real estate agents to want to service Section 8 tenants. So that these type of tasks and teaching and getting that done often falls to people like me that are consultants. And even then, it's kind of a patchwork. It's certainly not impossible, but there's not a in your face answer to the question. Okay, Angela, could you please, in your own interpretation, define and describe PSA case management manager for voucher recipients as it is or how it should be? What best ways to utilize case management? Well, I can speak in terms directly related to what our company does. I can't speak to other consultants. There are many that are actors and entertainers on YouTube, okay, as an example. And there's only maybe one or two of us that are actual real consultants, okay? So that's the first distinction. But if you have an actual real consultant, the best use of your time would be first and foremost would be utilizing that service to help or assist you expedite the process of getting a voucher and navigating that system, so you're able to cut down all the stressful activity. Second to that, I would say, would be addressing all the issues you may have related to their landlord, housing authority, its employees, or any federal actions that may be taken through HUD or other federal agencies. Some more complicated matters. Uh, Third to that, I'd say addressing portability, and the most complicated of all would be useful for casework would be for those that want to participate in and successfully navigate HUD homeownership program. Now, there are many things going on, and everybody's circumstance is very different. I have clients that are disabled. Sometimes we have combinations of issues: disabled, senior, and veteran. Or it's kind of like going to Popeye's Chicken for those who have that restaurant or the Chicken Hut, and you go down there and you try to figure out whether you want a 3-piece or a 2-piece. Look, people's problems are the same way. It's like a box of chicken. You're gonna get different elements, and it's gonna have different requirements to successfully navigate that. I probably didn't even answer the question the way that you wanted. That's the peril of videos. Sometimes I don't interpret questions the way they probably were meant. So I apologize if I didn't address it in the manner in which you would have liked. Um, Brick Bullets. Hello from Iowa. Well, I tell you what, we love Iowa, don't we? You know what, guys? And about halfway through my career, a decade or so in, we ran a choo-choo train on Iowa for vouchers. They used to hand those things out like they were food stamp cards, man. Look, Iowa, there's people out there are so laid back when it comes to things. They're quite pleasant, or they can be quite deranged. But the good folks of Iowa are one thing for sure. They're good people, and I got to tell you, it was a good run on those vouchers out there. It helped a lot of clients, and many people want them over there. But of course, I didn't stay in Iowa, so thought I'd bring that up. I don't know how that plays into anything. Saying Johnson, can you explain the new HOTMA that is going on, implemented, and will it help PH and voucher participants? Now, that HOTMA, I don't want to get too deep in that because if I give out advice in the short term on that, I think what I'll do there, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, I will address a specific video directly related to HOTMA. And I'm going to put up a public format of how-to videos. In other words, I'm going to ask you guys in our community page on YouTube. So if you click on my photo, it'll bring you to the main page of our channel, and there you'll see in the just like a website, you'll see in the bar up there a community page. If you go to that, it's kind of like a Facebook page where you could actually ask questions and things. So I'm going to post what how-to videos y'all like to know, and I'm going to address those specific topics that way. Okay, so. As it goes on, Emergency HV has a district benefit staff for rental, search, and translation. That's interesting. Bring bullets. I'm on Section 8 and bought a house with it under the new homeownership program they have. I'll tell you what, that is a mighty feat that you have won there, Brick Bullets. Only about 9% of all people that ever managed to even learn about, get through, and follow and meet the criteria required actually get through HUD homeownership. That's because, like most things, it's not because it's necessarily difficult. It's because the amount of stress and bullshit you have to go through dealing with the housing authority. A lot of you participate in a system where you're depending on the housing authority to educate, teach, and you're having to trust them for your needs through the federal system. But yet they tend to treat you badly and victimize you and often give you sparse information. I know that. That's why my phones have a meltdown and seizure nearly every day from people trying to get answers. Google's not a very good resource for giving answers, and what answers are on Google tend to be decades old and respun articles that make no sense. Kel's not sure if you missed my question. Let's see. I see you commented about should be interesting and quite informative. Finally getting what is considered relief here in PHX. And I don't see any further comments there. Do be aware, guys, sometimes YouTube itself, my hands are on my legs. He's out here. And I don't know, I'm not blocking anybody. So you may be seeing your question, but for one reason or another, YouTube has not opted to show that to me on my side. And that could be any number of reasons. A good example would be if you use the word stool. You could be referring to a bar stool, or you could be referring to a medical issue where you're going to the bathroom and having a stool, right? Well, YouTube will block words like that because it doesn't interpret them right. And you'll see your comment on your end, but it won't show it to me. So I'd say re-ask, rephrase the question and ask again, and maybe YouTube will show it to me. Don't ask me why YouTube has such a crazy algorithm, but that's what they do. Sherry Austin, I like the idea of finding a home with HUD and voucher. But, I've been preaching the last decade that if you are going to participate greater than 1 year in having a voucher and utilizing that you should be looking at your long-term goals to participate in HUD homeownership program, okay? Or you can call it the Section 8 house ownership program, whatever you want to call it, okay? But the reality of it is, if you've got an agency that's going to pay 70% of your mortgage for the next 10 or 15 years, dump all that equity into your home, help you through the process, we'll at least try, then that would be the smartest decision. So most of you are addressing, I can't pay the rent, then you move on to the concept of let me pursue a voucher. Once you get through that hellish part and you've had your wait, then you're utilizing it, and then you're determining, okay, now I've dealt with that adversity and that amount of stress. Can I take on more? For those of you that have the physical fortitude or the mental fortitude, it would be strongly advised that you pursue the last leg of the mission. Look, anytime there's no program in the country that covers 70% of the mortgage for over a decade. Now, while it may not afford you a country home, a country acres, or a mansion, I would advise that on a low to medium level, it's probably the best damn deal in America if you can get the housing authority to fund 70% of your mortgage for 10 years. Nobody gets that kind of deal. It's, in my opinion, the best deal out there in any federal system. So it's worth whatever it requires. If your hair starts to fall out, even turn gray, a few meltdowns, you might even kick the cat. I hope you don't, but it's worth whatever bullshit they put you through. In terms of that, I know what they put you through because I consult on that all the time with people. Or all this has worked with hundreds of people to help them navigate and not have a mental breakdown going through the process. For others, they've been fortunate enough to get through it and it wasn't too difficult. The thing you must understand about HUD homeownership program is highly contingent on your local housing authority. If the people there are assholes, then you're going to expect a very stressful run. If you are fortunate enough to be in middle America and other places where they're pleasant, then that's great. Many of you are in big cities where housing authority employees can be like piranhas, and it's hard to deal with them, and it's already a gigantic pain in the ass to get anything done. So, it comes down to local housing authority as to how well the experience goes, and of course your own capability, intellectual ability to get through it. But I find most people can't really take on another ounce of stress. That's probably why my phone rings so much. Um, and I plan on using the word and okay quite a bit in the video. If that creates a stigma in your brain, then all you have to do is throw your phone, drive your car to the bridge, throw your phone off, and then find another YouTube channel. We all have our hang-ups. If you don't like it, tough shit. Nobody's made a comment about it. I'm just saying, look, I'm going to run my show the way I want to. All right, Rosemary Lopez. I tried sometimes to get in some kind of HUD homeownership program with my vouchers, but they keep telling me I'm not eligible. Well, Rosemary, I would say it might be worth reaching out to my office to see if that decision can be overturned. What I noticed very unique about how you phrase that and exactly how the housing authority phrased it to you is you're not eligible. So the question would be, anytime I work on cases, I'm looking at eligibility. If my client's 1 point from being eligible, then we work towards making you eligible. In other words, now the housing authority just shows it as a roadblock to you. Well, you're not eligible. But when you think about that, I would compel the housing authority to turn over all their data, policies, and procedures, and I would force them to give me the final requirements, and then we would simply have to work towards making you eligible. Okay, if that meant taking on a little job, braiding hair, walking dogs, whatever it is, if you need an income boost or whatever to meet the criteria. So it's never a question of am I eligible? It's what's it going to take in order to make you eligible. Okay, that's the mind frame I need a lot of you guys to be in. Look, we receive cases where people think they have no case. By the time we get through with it, they've got a wonderful case. Sometimes you have to work towards meeting the federal guidelines rather than just accepting defeat. Not that that's what you're doing, but we have to change our view on that. We got to be prepared to fight. We have to be willing to deal with adversity, and we certainly have to not go quietly in the night. With a lot of this, because if you leave it to the opinion of the housing authority, they won't give you anything but grief. GG, greatness. I like that name. Is there a program to help you with all the utilities? Well, the federal government and Congress are not going to fund your light bill, but there is an answer to that question. Your voucher, the landlord, as it rents to you, has the option to include utilities. Okay. Now I know that's not the answer you want. You're probably having a few swear words quietly in your home right now, thinking I didn't answer your question. But the reality of it is the government doesn't pay light bills. Okay, they won't pay your phone bill and all that stuff. So the only option for you is to weaponize and use your voucher in a manner where a landlord would include utilities. Donna Harris, I'm 45. Well, congratulations. You're younger than me. And good morning. GG Greatness. I want to say it's very hard to get on to Section 8 here where I live in Texas. Well, I live in Texas too right now. My office is in Texas, and I would say the state of Texas is probably the easiest place to get a voucher. It comes down to perspective. Now, you may be quite right. It may be hard in your local market, but sometimes if you don't know how to navigate outside your market to get what you need and bring it back, that'd be a good time to reach out to a consultant. You don't have to be me as a consultant or my office. It can be any qualified consultant. Okay. Eternal Goddess. I like that name as well. Do you have input on how to request an extra bedroom? So that would be called accommodations and modifications. There are very serious requirements behind that. Okay, that means even if you have the manual, doesn't mean you're going to have the legal knowledge or the pretense to be able to force a housing authority or compel them to actually accept and approve your case. That I would advise you actually speak to a consultant about. Why? Because once you make an argument in front of the Roman Catholic Church, you only get one shot. And if Jesus turns you down, you're done. Now, that's meant to be a joke, not an insult to anybody. But the point is, once you make that request, and if you screw it up, then they're not going to re-review that. You can arbitrate it. So you really need a defensible position with that. And writing an empathy or sympathy store or some wild excuse about how you want it, if it doesn't meet the actual federal guidelines, you're in trouble. And they don't write manuals for that. They do write manuals about rules, but they're not going to teach you how to get it. That's more in the line of attorney or a consultant. Um, Donna Harris goes on. You read that I'm 45, but right above that is Section 8. Well, damn it, YouTube, you've got to show me that woman's whole comment. Thank you, Donna, for correcting, for giving me that extra information. Angela, how best to train to be a consultant? Where should we start? Well, I'm going to wait till I'm my retirement to give that answer because I think that there's a really ugly side to consulting work, and it takes a tremendous person to be able to deal with it. You deal with a lot more you never imagined. But the best way, first, to learn a little bit about it, would be to reach out to HUD itself and look at what the requirements would be through HUD. But I can tell you something, just like being a doctor or lawyer, there's what they teach you in grade school, okay, to get your certificate out, the lawyer bubblegum machine and the doctor lawyer machine. But until you go out there and you actually work in the emergency room, until you actually go out there and do your class action case and get your ass handed to you, then I'm going to tell you that what you learn in the class to be a consultant ain't going to be what it really is. And lots of people do professions. It doesn't mean you're going to ever be any good at it. That's the exception to the rule in a very hard case. So it's one thing to be a consultant. It's another to understand all the rules and policies, but to be able to actually be successful at it and demonstrate that you're able to do that job, that's a whole different thing. And then there's a whole fourth dimension, a whole nother parallel. Can you survive the many personalities and people you're going to deal with? Over 40% of the clients I deal with have mental health issues, and there's a lot of wild and interesting behaviors. And so you have your heart and your mind has to be into it to want to help people. Otherwise, you'll get destroyed through this process. I know that because I've attempted to hire over 28 people into my office in my career, and I'm that only 1% of them ever last. That's because they cannot handle the emotional tones of dealing with a 90-year-old woman living in the forest and they can't save her. It takes a heavy toll on the person's soul. If you have any moral or ethical center, it will take a toll on you. All right, so beyond that, Deanna Dove, with a HEB, what happens when the annual inspection of the property? So the annual inspection or your housing quality inspection or your annual inspection, now that does come. And now PHAs, what you want to do, Ms. Dub, is to reach out to them and request their administrative plan. That will determine how much latitude they're given. So say you're coming in the lease, you haven't had your annual, they can be given additional months to address that, okay? So the housing authority will always be, you're always going to have to operate at the speed they want. They're not going to do things always, they can get backed up. I mean, many caseworkers are being paid $6 an hour. They're working 20 hours for 900 cases. It's not uncommon for housing authorities to be extremely late. There's no federal laws going to throw them in prison for being late, okay? So that's where you have to have latitude. You have to shine better. So when you deal with a housing authority and they're super late like that, rather than go bitch, complain, and throw them under the bus, I would advise putting on your best personality and sympathize if you can. Now, if that worker treated you badly previously, then hell, throw them under the bus. Or contact me. We'll throw them under the legal bus, the prison bus. Not to suggest my office is going to throw anybody in prison, but I've got a pretty good reputation for having people retire early. All right, moving on from there. Gigi Greatness, you make me laugh. I try. Look, guys, I say all kinds of wild-eyed, crazy things in the channel. That's because I really, really don't think any of y'all would enjoy watching a middle-aged white dude sit here in monotone sit here and just tell you, like Harry Potter singing out of a book, how to do things. So we have to put a little spice in here, spice it up. Otherwise, it's going to be a boring, boring channel. All right, Angela, I'm on a resident advisory board, always looking for more info to share. Well, you should reach out to all of us. We work with law firms, we work with case management companies, we work with hundreds of landlords. We've done speaker events for legal aid societies. We consult several news agencies. So there's lots published out there. I think I'm reasonably good in terms of reputation and advice. So if that suits you, give her all a ring. Tis the HUD ownership mortgage program, only 10 years. Okay, look, guys, when I speak in broad terms, to answer questions about home ownership and all that, it's a broad term. Uh, Look, it's going to be highly contingent on the term of the mortgage itself. So if you're going to have a 30-year mortgage, 15 years, if you're going to have a 15-year mortgage, then 10 years, and those rules may change. They do change quite a bit. Matter of fact, February under new elections, whoever hops in that White House chair could choose to change the rules again, and that rolls down to HUD, of course. So for now, we'll just call it the 10-15 rule. So 15-year mortgage, 10 years, and 30-year mortgage is going to be 15 unless otherwise noted at the low. Lord Goddess, how do you find out about about homeowner options? Well, that's ever changing. So we will make another video regarding that. Your first step would be HUD. If they have time to kind of discuss that, I'll try to roll out a video and maybe next week regarding a little bit more specifics on HUD homeownership program to help you out. Rosemary Lopez, I appreciate you. I appreciate you joining me. Otherwise, I'd be lonely and have nobody to talk to but my cats in the office. All right, Sheila Neal, thumbs up to everyone. Well, guys, I'm going to go see my doctor today, and I wanted to stop by and answer a question for you guys. I know it's not a complete consult, and you may not even got a complete answer to the question, but that's what videos are about. We try to get the information out. I have sat here for 15 plus years on this channel trying to address and teach, okay, and educate. It's not about YouTube giving me a few copper pennies for a video and how many views. I'm not here for money. I could care less about money and YouTube. YouTube has never paid me enough to pay an electric bill. So I'm here of my own volition to help people, to educate, to empower, and to help you not be a victim to a system that would afford you nothing if you didn't know. Moving on from there, I'm going to go see Doc today, and I've had some stomach problems, and it's equated into being tired and having a hard time making these videos sometimes. So let's hope I'm not dying of anything. I don't think I am. And we'll have good news. Again, guys, I want to address a very serious video Sunday. This video will not be about spice and attitudes, but it's going to be about the housing market, past, present, and future, how that effect is played out with things like segregated cities and towns and sundown towns. These were things of the past, okay, not that long ago. And we're still seeing a lot of division. There's a direct effect on how you're using your voucher, whether you're Caucasian, whether you're African American, Hispanic. There's a real effect to this. And depending on where you live, and one of the worst offenders is the very city I came up in, and that's Baton Rouge. Next biggest offender is New Orleans, and half the state of Louisiana. And the second biggest offenders, a lot of the Midwest, upper Midwest going east. But this is not going to be a conference. It's not going to be a platform for extremism. We're not going to be discussing prejudices and all those other things. What we're going to discuss is how that effect is still playing a big factor in terms of housing and vouchers. So if you want to come to have an open and educated dialogue about it, that's fine. If you're going to come here to spread some misery, I'll put your ass out my channel, okay? Let's be clear about that. I'm not going to put up with that shit. It would matter if you're Democratic or Republican. We're not going to engage in activities to despair anybody, okay? I'm open to opinions and ideas, but not if we're going to get uneducated and unruly about it. Guys, I hope to see y'all Sunday for that. I think that's going to be a very good video to make. I know it's going to attract the wrong kind of crowd, but I'm already figured out ways to block half the things they're probably going to say, and that should leave us a very clean format to be able to speak without offensive comments and other nonsense and bullshit. Okay, so I've been really enjoying talking with you guys today, and Sunday I hope to have a very intelligible conversation, an educated conversation on how we can navigate a prejudicial system and division among humans on Earth. Just to be clear about one thing, even if we solved those issues and we had the same race in one neighborhood, they would find a way to divide people between those that are pretty and those that are ugly. And once those people were divided out, then there would be a further division of, well, she's fat and I'm thin. Then there'd be another division of, well, I'm rich and that's just poor trash. We as humans will find any possible way to fucking torture the next human. I often wonder what happened. We live in a sinless world. There was only one human living here. There would be nobody to create all these problems we create for ourselves. We literally, it's like we're bored. We're stuck on a rock and an ozone layer, and we wander around and we try to figure out new ways to fuck with each other. And that's what we do on this little globe. God help an alien. If the Martians ever land here, boy, they are fucked. They're going to end up, we're going to greet them real well, and then we're going to start with the kitchen knives. First thing we're going to do, we're going to move them past the railroad tracks. Then we're going to try to segregate them. You see all the games we're going to play? We're all going to come together as one world, and then we're going to discriminate against them. God help anybody that visits planet Earth. We've got to be the most bad off humans that ever existed because we still have not figured out how to get along. We still struggle with the concept that because one human has one color skin and another it has a different color. It's a good thing my cats don't think that way because then I'd have racist cats. Well, hey, so I'd pretend I'd be Bob the cat. Hey, well, look at that bitch. She's orange. She's from over the tracks. She's probably on food stamps too. You see, so this is all just crazy to me. It's like a game of unintelligence. And so I'm going to get off of here before I go off the deep end. But you see the point? This is the kind of shit I would expect from kindergartners. Why do we even, as a human race, why do we still have this problem? It just amazes me. We have so many fish to fry, but we're still doing shit 200 years later. It's like we don't learn anything. God help the Martians when they arrive, please. They're probably going to pass us by. It's so sad. They're going to have to go. They're going to look. We ain't going down. Them people crazy down there. You know, they hate each other. Why the hell would I want to land my ship here? So, anyways, I meant that to be funny and interesting, but I think you all see the point. We've got to move on and make intelligent decisions and just stop the nonsense. Really, it's not good for anybody. Because in the end, once you peel off everybody's skin, all you got is a heart and a brain and a soul, brother. That's all it is. All right, guys, I love you. We'll see you Sunday, and I hope to have a lot of fun with that video. All right, bye-bye.